starting starting to record whatever we happen to talk about.
All right. So this will be a short episode of the Diamond Anvil, Too Hard to Smash. And I wanted to talk very briefly with Eugene about naming conventions. So this is something that comes up in our videos all the time. And why? Because naming conventions are weird. So pardon the guerrilla format of this. We were supposed to record it on my PC, but technical difficulties came up. And so anyway, this comes up regularly. So for instance, when you look at an object, let's say you're looking at a specific galaxy, everybody may refer to this galaxy as M31, right? Now, most people that you probably talk to will have no idea what that is. But if you say the Andromeda Galaxy, our largest major galactic neighbor, everybody seems to know what that is. So naming conventions, you've got things that are arbitrarily named and things that are scientifically named, right? So there are all kinds of animals that are now still improperly named because the colloquial name for it is something completely unrelated to what it actually is. And another example that comes to mind, just kind of off the cuff here, because we don't rehearse a video like this, Eugene and I, we try to have a legit conversation in real time. Another great example would be Ayers Rock, otherwise known as Uluru. I prefer Uluru, but that's just me. It sounds more like an appropriate name for a rock formation, as weird as Ayers Rock. So, and everybody, I'd like to welcome Eugene the Philosopher and one of our patrons, Donnie, to the call as well. What's going on with you guys, and what do you think of naming conventions?
Hello.
As some names seem to be scientific, some names are completely arbitrary, some are total nonsense, or some are like a combination of them, right? That's sort of my basic premise.
Yeah. Okay. Donnie, do you have anything to say about this?
I haven't given it much thought up till now. I do recognize that the colloquial names are much easier to remember than, as Stan pointed out, the scientific names. They tend to be of a sort that makes it difficult to associate them with what the object actually is, like M31. What is that? Andromeda, fine, everyone knows that. I agree with that completely. But I haven't given it much thought.
Yeah, so I would say that in general, naming of things is arbitrary. So first of all, like basically it depends on what you intend to do with it in the end, maybe. Or sometimes it depends on how it was acquired, like M31, this example, it's Messier catalog. That's why it has the letter M.
Exactly.
Then you also have NGC, like New Galaxies catalog or something like that, which is another catalog, which also has its own number for M31. It's NGC something, which I don't know, unfortunately.
Yeah, but when the number is just the order in which they were discovered, I would assume.
Probably, yeah. Or something like that. Maybe how big they are or something like that. Yeah. So even those names indeed don't actually carry any meaning. But then again, what meaning does Andromeda carry? It's just a galaxy in the constellation of Andromeda, or what? Like, so
I believe that's Greek mythology, isn't Andromeda?
I mean, of course, yeah, sure, but which scientific meaning does that have? It doesn't.
Well, yeah. That's one of the ones that's arbitrary, and that's why the naming of stars and galaxies and stuff are such an interesting subject when it comes to naming conventions. Because there's the Messier catalog, and that one is, and I think it is actually in order of discovery. But other ones are named a little differently. Some are based on the position in the sky. Some are based on the date that they were discovered, and they have, like, for example, like the infrared 2 mass that we look at all the time on the videos. The 2 mass is named after like a University of Massachusetts project for infrared radio spectra and so on. So
the rotation of a neutron star.
It's cool if you know what the naming convention means when it comes to stuff like this, but if you're trying to actually look at the cosmology of it and you don't know what the naming convention means, it's a problem, because it's a mess of all kinds of unnecessary arbitrary letters. But if you know
Well,
what they mean, it's good. And
it's probably
you
quite
know,
useful those for the specialists who are really delving into that they immediately know what the prefix refers to, and depending on what kind of an object it is, the following data will tell them something because they're really deep into it, and it's probably some kind of logical construction going on there so that the experts really do know what they're talking about. But those who are not experts, it just says nothing.
and it gets so complicated when it comes to astronomy and cosmology stuff that you get like one group of people who knows what that particular series of designations means because they're only looking at radio astronomy for like a decade. Things get so specialized, especially
That's what I
in
mean. The specialists, they get into that stuff then.
yeah. It gets to the point where it becomes cryptic and confusing, and it's one of these situations where you get chaos out of order. Indeed, when you take orderly systems, you find chaos in them, and when you take chaotic systems, you find order in them across pretty much anything in the universe.
I don't think it's the situation where we get chaos out of order. It's actually the very confusion that comes with different naming conventions is caused by the inherent chaos, if you like, of the
Well, I
situation.
just
Like
not in
we're
general.
trying, by establishing a convention, we're trying to order the chaos around us, right? This is
Right.
like Adam calling like all the animals, like giving them names, etc. It's like trying to order the environment.
Yeah, it's a reduction of entropy as long as you know what the naming convention means, right?
Yeah, sort of. But
But it's
yeah,
all
of
you're
course
also
you have to have some keys to it, if you know what I mean, like some
yeah
legend.
yeah. Because if you don't, you're looking at a map of a bunch of colors and you don't know what the colors mean. It's like when you report a number and you forget to include the units. It's like what? Watts? Coulombs? What is it supposed to be?
Well, I
Miles
used
per
to
hour?
work in programming department, and we had
Oh, nice.
conventions there where when you got into a project group, sometimes it was required to put naming conventions for the programs you were writing, and
Sure.
if you didn't have one as a template, then we would get together, a group in the project, and we would formally decide, well, how are we going to make this? We're going to have the first characters represent the name of the programmer, or is it going to be according to the type of project? Is it going to be the type of product or whatever? We'd sit together and talk about it, and we'd write it down formally, and then we'd all know.
And then like within programs too, you can have functions. You got to have naming conventions for functions and specific variables. And once you get enough variables, you can just memorize what they're supposed to be. Because I used to write code too, and if you have a bunch, I couldn't imagine what it would be like being in a department that tries to do it. I've never tried to do that, just in classes.
Yeah, well, what I found was that, as long as you're within your own close working group, it was perfectly clear. You could look at any program, you know who wrote it, you know when it was written, you know what it was about, what the functionality and so on. You're just looking at the name. But
I guess you could even write a program to include what the keys are to tell you what's going on in the programs.
Yeah.
What the conventions are.
But you go down the next corridor into another group and you find that, well, they're using a different kind of, a simpler one maybe, but with, some different characteristics that are more fitting to their type of work that they're doing. And you look at those and you have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I've already looked at chunks of numbers that are like a bunch of dates and just not even realize that there are dates. I just wasn't thinking about it. And somebody's like, you realize those are all dates, right? And it's like, oh, it's, just 8-digit dates or something like that. And I don't realize that it's dates.
Yeah.
It happens, man. overlook the most obvious things unless you're looking
Well,
for them.
even that as an example, the dating conventions are there's all kinds of them.
Yeah.
I live in Germany and it's different than the U.S. So sometimes I look at a date and said, well, what is that? Is that the day month or is that month day? Or,
It should be day, month, year. It seems like you're insane if you like. Why would it be anything besides day, month, year? The day is going to be the most relevant to your day-to-day life. The month is going to be a little less, and the year is going to be a little less, right? That's the order it should be in. Day,
yeah,
month,
but
year.
if you're a programmer, it's
100%
just the reverse. It's
day, month, year.
year, month, day.
I can tell you that like I've been working again with like catalogs of flares and stuff, and if you have multiple years, it's usually better to have them sorted by year, month, day, because then at least you're like when you're looking at it, let's say from Windows, like folder, at least you'll have them sorted by years, like through the file name. Or otherwise, you'll have a complete mess if you start with a date, with the number of the day. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, sometimes it would make sense. I actually had a thought, which is sort of a philosophical twist to our story. So basically, yeah, both of you were talking about that. Basically, if you don't have like a key, the like some crucial piece of information, you won't be able to decipher the database, right? You won't know what these names mean.
Right.
And this is a big problem, and it may be a big problem in a more general sense. Like there was a project, it's just a funny example from Eugene the Philosopher for everyone. So there are perhaps even several projects of like encoding library information or like just general like humanities accumulated information into like glass, or like diamonds. So you laser 3D print the info inside the glass, if you know what I mean. Like you create a very small bubbles there or something like that, which can then be read, and the density of information you can encode in such a way is just enormous, right? So you can like encode a whole library in like a 10 by 10 centimeter cube of glass or something like that.
It's a very high density worm drive.
Yes, so we have a very high density database, but the problem is whenever like huge apocalypse comes and the device that reads this information is unavailable, it's completely useless. So
yeah,
right.
It's an 8-track player, baby. You got a bunch of 8 tracks.
So yeah. So there are things to think about with regards to this general issue. By the way, Zoom says to me that I only have 2 minutes remaining, like 2 minutes 40 seconds for the conference.
Well, I think we should end this because we're supposed to be at the live stream anyway.
All right.
I thought we were there already. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're not even set up to stream yet. We'll have to be a few minutes late for that, but we should get to that. And and by the way, everybody should subscribe to Eugene the Philosopher. If you haven't, go check him out. I will not be satisfied until I see him at 1,000 subscribers, which is totally meaningless for me as we're not even at 2,000 subscribers.
Then I guess you'll have to play Rolling Stones, I Can Get No Satisfaction every day. Like your hymn or something, your anthem.
I'm on the side, but all right. Yeah, all right. Anyway, Eugene, I encourage you to soon press that stop button. Thanks, everybody, for watching. This has been another episode of The Diamond Anvil, Too Hard to Smash.
Yeah, thanks to everyone, and goodbye.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you. Bye.
And thanks, viewers.